China's hidden underground empire. 2,000 years ago, someone carved massive underground chambers beneath Longyou, China, rooms large enough to hold apartment buildings, then left no records explaining why. The caves weren't discovered until 1992 when a farmer drained what he thought was a pond and uncovered an entire flooded cavern system. The caves cover 30,000 square meters with precisely carved pillars and decorated walls. Nearly 1 million cubic meters of rock was removed, but there's no evidence of where it went. The walls show coordinated chisel marks suggesting organized teams, yet Han Dynasty records never mention this massive project. No tools, no debris, and no historical accounts exist. The caves simply appeared fully formed, then vanished from all documentation until their accidental rediscovery. The temple builders buried their work. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey rewrites human history because hunter-gatherers built monumental architecture 12,000 years ago, 6,000 years before Stonehenge, then deliberately buried it. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt discovered the site in 1994 after noticing carved limestone on a hillside locals thought was a cemetery. Massive T-shaped pillars weighing 20 tons feature detailed animal carvings including lions and scorpions. These structures required techniques that shouldn't exist in pre-agricultural societies with no permanent settlements or domesticated animals. Here's the truly bizarre part. Around 8000 BCE, builders intentionally filled the entire complex with debris, not through abandonment, but organized labor that perfectly preserved everything while hiding it completely. No one knows why they invested generations building monuments only to bury them. Bronze Age engineering mystery. The Baalbek megaliths in Lebanon include stone blocks weighing over 1,000 tons, each heavier than 3 Boeing 747 moved and placed with ancient technology. The Temple of Jupiter's foundation contains 3 massive stones called the Trilithon, each measuring 19 meters long and precisely fitted together without mortar or gaps. Modern cranes can barely lift 1,000 tons, yet these stones were quarried a quarter-mile away, transported uphill, and lifted 20 feet onto existing walls. Ancient techniques like wooden rollers, sledges, and earthen ramps have been proposed, but no one has successfully demonstrated how Bronze Age workers could move objects this massive at this scale. The nearby quarry still contains the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighing 1,200 tons and partially carved but never moved. Roman engineers who built the temple above these stones in the 1st century CE explicitly stated the foundation blocks were already ancient when they arrived. The Conqueror's Vanishing Grave. Genghis Khan conquered more territory than any human in history, from Korea to Hungary, yet his burial location remains completely unknown 800 years after his death. When Khan died in 1227, his soldiers followed strict orders: kill anyone who witnessed the funeral procession, then hide the grave so thoroughly that no trace would ever be found. Legends claim 2,000 attendees were executed to protect the secret, and the soldiers who buried him were killed by another unit afterward. Some accounts say 10,000 horses trampled the burial site to erase all evidence, while others suggest a river was diverted to flow over his tomb. The Mongol royal family kept the location secret for generations, and when the empire collapsed, the knowledge died with them. Modern searches using satellites and ground-penetrating radar across Mongolia's vast wilderness have found nothing. The world's most successful conqueror effectively erased himself from the earth. Bronze objects with unknown purpose. Roman dodecahedrons, 12-faced bronze objects with circular holes and knobs, have been found across Europe in over 100 locations, yet no Roman text mentions them and no one knows what they were for. These palm-sized artifacts date from the 2nd to 4th centuries CE and show careful craftsmanship with symmetrical geometry and varying hole sizes. Theories include surveying instruments, candle holders, dice, religious objects, and even knitting tools for making gloves. But here's what doesn't make sense. Each theory fails to explain why the holes are different sizes, why they're found only in northern provinces, and why Romans never wrote about objects they mass-produced for centuries. Some were found in coin hoards suggesting they were valuable, while others were buried in graves. The Romans documented everything from military tactics to recipes, but somehow never explained these precisely crafted objects they made for 200 years. China's Forbidden Pyramid. The White Pyramid near Xi'an, China stands between 50 and 100 meters tall and sits in a restricted military zone where the Chinese government refuses excavation permits. Western aviators first photographed it in 1947, but Chinese officials denied its existence for decades until satellite imagery made denial impossible. The structure is surrounded by over 40 other pyramid-shaped mounds that Chinese authorities classify as natural hills or ancient burial mounds. The region contains the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, whose terracotta army wasn't discovered until 1974, despite being buried since 210 BCE. Government archaeologists claim the pyramids are Han Dynasty tombs too fragile to excavate, but refuse to allow international teams to verify this. this. Thermal imaging shows the White Pyramid has internal chambers and unusual heat signatures. Whether it's protecting undiscovered tombs, hiding evidence that contradicts official history, or concealing something else entirely remains unknown behind government secrecy. The Drowned Continent. Between islands Doggerland was a massive landmass connecting Britain to mainland Europe that supported thriving human populations until rising seas submerged it 8,500 years ago. This wasn't a small land bridge. It covered 100,000 square miles, larger than modern Britain, with rivers, lakes, and coastlines where thousands of people lived as hunter-gatherers. Fishermen trawling the North Sea accidentally discovered Doggerland by pulling up ancient tools, mammoth bones, and even a human skull in their nets. Seismic surveys used for oil exploration revealed an entire drowned landscape with river valleys and prehistoric settlements preserved underwater. The flooding happened gradually as Ice Age glaciers melted, then catastrophically around 6,200 BCE when an underwater landslide off Norway created a tsunami that swept across the remaining highlands. Survivors fled to what became the British Isles and European coast, but their entire world vanished beneath the waves. The map that knew too much. The Piri Reis map, created by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis in 1513, accurately shows the coastlines of South America with precision that rivals modern surveys, yet it was drawn decades before detailed European exploration of the continent. The map was found in 1929 in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace Library, drawn on gazelle skin with mathematical projections. What makes scholars debate this map is a controversial section that some researchers claim resembles the Antarctic coastline as it exists beneath the ice, knowledge that wouldn't be available until the 1950s using sonar technology. Most academics attribute this resemblance to coincidence or distorted South American geography rather than ancient Antarctic exploration. Piri Reis wrote annotations claiming he compiled it from 20 older maps, including charts used by Columbus and ancient maps dating to Alexander the Great's time. No source maps have been found, and the accuracy of certain coastlines remains difficult to explain given 16th century exploration records. The temple carved from above Kailasa. Temple in Maharashtra, India was carved top down from a single mountain. Workers removed 400,000 tons of rock by chiseling downward to create a freestanding structure. Unlike temples built with blocks, this was sculpted by removing everything that wasn't temple, requiring perfect planning since mistakes couldn't be fixed. The construction removed rock equivalent to twice the volume of the Parthenon, yet it was completed in approximately 18 years according to inscriptions. The temple features intricate sculptures, hidden chambers, and structural elements like pillars and bridges carved from solid basalt, one of the hardest rocks to work. Engineers estimate that even with modern equipment, replicating this would take decades. The builders had no blueprints to reference and couldn't see the overall design while working inside the excavation. One miscalculation would have ruined years of work, yet the finished temple shows architectural precision throughout. Egypt's vanished architectural wonder. Herodotus described the Egyptian labyrinth in 450 BCE as surpassing the pyramids, a vast structure with 3,000 rooms, half underground, containing the remains of kings and sacred crocodiles. The Greek historian personally toured it and called it indescribable in its grandeur, yet the structure has never been definitively rediscovered. Herodotus wrote that the labyrinth near Lake Moeris covered more ground than all Greek temples combined, with countless passages designed to confuse intruders. Roman historians, including Strabo and Pliny, also documented visiting it centuries later. Then it vanished. Modern archaeologists have identified possible locations near the pyramid of Amenemhat III at Hawara, and ground-penetrating radar detected large underground anomalies in 2008. Egyptian authorities denied excavation permits, and political instability halted research. One of antiquity's most famous structures, witnessed and documented by multiple historians across centuries, has been lost for over 1,500 years. The ancient mechanical computer. The Antikythera Mechanism, discovered in a Roman shipwreck in 1901, is a 2,000-year-old bronze device with 30-plus meshing gears that calculated astronomical positions and eclipses, technology that wouldn't reappear for 1,000 years. X-ray imaging revealed differential gearing, a technique not seen again until the 16th century clocks. The device predicted solar and lunar eclipses, tracked the Olympic Games cycle, and modeled irregular lunar motion using epicyclic gearing. Inscriptions covering the mechanism provided operating instructions in ancient Greek. What baffles researchers is the engineering precision. Gear teeth were hand-cut to tolerances of fractions of a millimeter, and the mechanism required understanding of advanced mathematics and astronomy. No other artifact from this period shows comparable mechanical sophistication. It's like finding a modern laptop in a medieval castle. Desert art visible only from sky. The Nazca Lines in Peru consist of over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and 70 animal figures etched into 200 square miles of desert, some stretching 1,200 feet long. Created between 500 BCE and 500 CE by removing reddish rocks to reveal lighter sand beneath. The mystery is purpose and method. The designs maintain perfect proportions despite their massive scale. Some lines run perfectly straight for miles across hills and valleys, requiring requiring advanced surveying. The figures include a 300-foot spider anatomically detailed enough to identify the species, and a monkey with a spiraled tail. While the geoglyphs are visible from nearby hills, their full scale and precision become apparent only from significant height. Theories range from astronomical calendars to ritual pathways to messages for gods. The dry climate preserved them for 1,500 years, but how workers created proportional designs without seeing the complete images from above remains unexplained. Walls fitted like laser puzzles. Sacsayhuaman fortress walls near Cusco, Peru, feature stones weighing up to 200 tons, fitted together so precisely that a knife blade cannot slip between them, achieved without mortar, metal tools, or the wheel. Some blocks have 12 angles perfectly matched to neighboring stones, creating interlocking joints that have survived 5 centuries of earthquakes. The Inca built these walls in the 15th century, but Spanish chroniclers reported that locals claimed the walls predated the Inca and were built by an earlier unknown civilization. Modern engineers cannot explain how workers shaped irregular granite blocks to fit perfectly against complex neighboring surfaces without modern measuring tools. Each stone's surface matches the curves and angles of multiple adjacent blocks, requiring 3-dimensional calculation that shouldn't be possible by eye. Experiments using bronze chisels and stone hammers, the only tools available, take months to shape single blocks with far less precision. The clay jar that stored electricity. The Baghdad Battery, discovered in 1936 near Baghdad, consists of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod, components that create a galvanic cell capable of generating electrical current when filled with acidic liquid. The artifact dates to around 250 BCE, suggesting the Parthian Empire may have possessed basic electrical knowledge 2,000 years before the modern battery. German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig proposed the electrical theory after noticing the components would function as a battery if filled with vinegar or wine. Replicas produce approximately 1 volt of electricity, enough for electroplating, which could explain gold-plated artifacts found in the region with no apparent plating technique. However, no ancient texts describe electrical experiments, no wires or conductors were found nearby, and the jar might have simply stored scrolls with the metal components serving as holders. The electrical theory remains unproven because looters had already disturbed the archaeological site before proper excavation. Whether the Parthians accidentally created batteries or intentionally used electricity is unknowable without additional evidence. Japan's submerged stone mystery. The Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast features massive stone formations with flat terraces, right angles, and staircase-like structures lying 25 meters underwater, either the ruins of a 10,000-year-old civilization or the world's most architecturally convincing natural rock formation. Dive instructor Kihachiro Aratake discovered the site in 1987 while searching for hammerhead sharks. The formation includes a 150-foot-long platform with 90-degree angles, parallel grooves, and what appears to be a carved face. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura argues the features are too precise to be natural, including a 16-foot pillar standing upright and carved channels directing water flow. Skeptics like geologist Robert Schock counter that sandstone naturally fractures along parallel planes, creating the appearance of human construction. The structure's age is critical. If man-made, it predates the Egyptian pyramids by 5,000 years and was built when sea levels were lower. No tools, pottery, or definitive proof of human modification have been found. The Book in Unknown Language. The Voynich manuscript is a 15th century book written entirely in an undeciphered script, filled with illustrations of unidentifiable plants, astronomical diagrams, and naked women bathing in green liquid connected by tubes. Carbon dating confirms the parchment dates to 1404 to 1438 CE, and the ink was applied shortly after, ruling out modern hoaxes. The manuscript contains 240 pages of consistent handwriting in an alphabet that appears nowhere else in history. Statistical analysis shows the text has patterns similar to natural language: repeated words, consistent grammar structures, and predictable letter frequencies. Code breakers from World War II, modern linguists, AI programs, and have all failed to crack it. The plant illustrations don't match any known species, and the astronomical charts use unfamiliar symbolism. Some researchers believe it's an elaborate cipher, others think it's a constructed language, and skeptics argue it's sophisticated nonsense designed to fool buyers. Alexander's missing tomb. Alexander the Great died in Babylon in 323 BCE and was supposedly buried in a gold sarcophagus in Alexandria, Egypt, a tomb visited by Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, and Roman emperors for 600 years before vanishing without trace. Ancient historians documented the tomb's location in Alexandria's royal quarter, describing it as a major landmark, yet no physical evidence has ever been found. Accounts describe Alexander's body being moved multiple times after death. His general Ptolemy hijacked the funeral procession and brought the corpse to Egypt, eventually placing it in a grand mausoleum that became a pilgrimage site. Roman Emperor Augustus allegedly broke Alexander's nose while viewing the body. Then around 400 CE, all references stop. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed promising underground chambers in Alexandria, but but excavation is nearly impossible beneath a densely populated modern city. The world's most famous conqueror simply disappeared from history. The treasure map in metal. The copper scroll discovered with the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1952 is unlike any other ancient religious text. It's a treasure map hammered into copper sheets listing 64 locations where gold, silver, and sacred artifacts were supposedly hidden, with quantities totaling over 100 tons of precious metals. Written around 70 CE when Romans besieged Jerusalem, the scroll describes hiding spots using landmarks and measurements. In the fortress, which is in the Vale of Hor, dig 40 cubits under the steps entering to the east, 16 talents of silver. The problem is that none of the 64 caches have ever been found. Some locations are too vague to identify after 2,000 years, while others point to areas that have been thoroughly searched. Scholars debate whether the treasure was real or symbolic. The quantities seem impossibly large for one group to possess. If real, it might describe temple treasures hidden during the Jewish revolt. The scroll remains the only treasure map from antiquity inscribed in metal. The script no one can read. The Indus Valley script consists of approximately 400 distinct symbols used by one of the world's earliest civilizations across modern Pakistan and India from 3300 to 1300 BCE. Yet despite thousands of inscribed artifacts, no one has successfully deciphered a single word. The script appears on seals, pottery, and tablets, typically in short sequences of 3 to 7 symbols. The main problem is brevity. Most inscriptions are too short to establish grammatical patterns needed for decryption. Unlike Egyptian hieroglyphs, which were cracked using the multilingual Rosetta Stone, no bilingual text exists for Indus script. Scholars don't even agree on whether it represents a complete language or just symbolic notation. Computer analysis has revealed the symbols follow linguistic patterns similar to natural languages, suggesting real words rather than simple pictures. The civilization that created it collapsed suddenly around 1900 BCE, possibly due to climate change or river shifts, and the script vanished with them. The Triangle of Real Disappearances. The Bermuda Triangle, a region between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has been linked to dozens of documented ship and aircraft disappearances. The mystery began gaining attention in 1950 when journalist Edward Van Winkle Jones noted an unusual number of losses in the area. Famous cases include Flight 19, 5 U.S. Navy bombers that vanished in 1945 with 14 crew members during a training exercise, followed by the rescue planes sent to find them. The USS Cyclops disappeared in 1918 with 309 people aboard and no distress signal. However, the U.S. Coast Guard officially states the area is not statistically more dangerous than other heavily traveled waters, and many incidents can be attributed to the region's unpredictable weather, heavy traffic, and human error. Several cases do defy easy explanation: vessels vanishing in calm weather, disappearances without wreckage despite thorough searches, and working ships found completely abandoned. Theories range from compass anomalies and methane gas eruptions that reduce water density to rogue waves, but no single theory explains all the documented cases.